Hello and welcome to Bit by a Grue, where we discuss tech, gaming, audio, and everything in between. So it's been a couple months. I think we got the last one out in
I think it was 6:30 was our record date, so it would have been early July.
Yeah, let me see. Let me look at podcast all episodes on the site. Wow, it doesn't actually give me a date on the thing directly. Thanks. When did I publish it? Apparently it was published July 27th. Huh.
Maybe we recorded that one late?
Maybe.
Oh, that's maybe we were going consistent. 6:16 was consistent, and then 6:30, but we didn't actually. Yeah, that could be.
Yeah, so...
Put it this way, it's been so long since we've recorded this podcast that I got a job and then quit my job in the time that it took for us to record another one.
I also quit my job a week ago. And rebuilt my computer 3 times. But yeah.
And now I kind of want to do that.
Yeah.
We'll get to that later.
Yeah. So it's been a hot minute. I grabbed a 3080 in that time. I think I might have mentioned that. Then upgraded my power supply.
I'm just curious, in these tough times with graphics cards, how did you get that 3080?
Through you! Because it was Coffee's EVGAQ thing.
Yeah, I'd already got my 3090 months ago, and somehow I still had a waitlist for a 3080, so there you go.
Yep. And then I picked up a 5800X. It was terribly binned, so I sent it back, picked up a replacement 5800X, where Core 4 promptly died completely. Okay, it wasn't completely, it was just whenever you, precision boosted it weirdly, the computer would just shut down instantly. Not blue screen, just... Except the front light would still be on my computer, but everything else was off, and that had just happened randomly while gaming. It happened twice while playing Bloons Tower Defense with Louie, 2 weeks ago-ish. Thankfully...
A Flash game brought Core 4 to its knees.
To be fair, that Flash game brings everything to its knees when you start using the aircraft. Figured out what was wrong. Thankfully, the rejoin feature works great. So fantastic. Sent that back to Amazon again through Best Buy. Bought a 5900X. Seems to work fine, although if I raise one of the limits for boosting too much, it will also just instantly crash, but I think that's a motherboard firmware issue, not a hardware issue, so whatever. But a computer at least seems to be stable for everything I'm doing, and so long as I don't raise that limit too high, it's fine. And where I currently have it, it was getting, I think, 22,160 on Cinebench R23, which apparently 2200 is congratulations, you have a properly working 5900. Anybody getting 23,000 is... Sorry, not 2,200, 22,000. Anybody getting 23,000 is the people who are really aggressively tuning their chips, and I just don't care. Saban's not around with us. He moved rooms.
Died in a tornado.
Moved rooms, got a girlfriend, had laundry in the wash, apparently, and forgot to hook up his microphone for the last week and a half. So maybe he'll be here next time.
When is next time?
Hopefully in 2 weeks. Since I'm no longer working at a regular job. Yeah. We actually can probably do this. Yeah.
Yay, optimism.
Coffee, you have some stuff.
Yeah, well, I think I'd kind of alluded to this way back when we did our last one, but I finally installed Windows 11 back over the summer in tech preview and now in full release, and it's really more of a window into why I should just use Linux instead.
Sure.
Which kind of takes us right into our first computing topic, which is Windows 11, fully launched at the start of August.
Fully.
Start of August. Yeah, fully. October, not August. Yeah, we kind of already touched on most of it. Nothing really changed. There's been issues with it. Surprise, surprise. Personally, it's been totally great on my laptop, which I guess is good because my laptop is a Surface, so if anything should work. My desktop, not so much. It has had issues where the taskbar doesn't load in until I manually restart Windows Explorer a bunch of times on boot. Startup apps have been weird.
Explorer does still use Internet Explorer, I think.
Sure. Wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, although when you gaffed with the August release, would we have appreciably noticed a quality difference if they released it in August versus October? Because it was from what I saw, already just...
Yeah, like everything that worked fine since I had probably around August is when I installed the beta branch technical preview on both my laptop and my desktop. And everything that hasn't worked has maintained not working into full launch. So from what I've seen, there hasn't been much of a difference.
Yeah, that's fair.
And yeah, it's really just, it's Windows 10 with a new skin on the things that they put the new skin on, with stuff with many versions of Windows older skins.
Wow, it's a centered taskbar, which I actually kind of hate. Is there an option to stick it back to the left side again?
Yeah, I think that's been there from the start.
Okay, good.
What they removed is the option to put it, for the sake of paths, who removed it from the bottom of the screen and put it on the side or the top.
Yeah.
I will say, I actually don't mind most of the icons being centered. I think the start menu should still be on the left, though, and maybe one or two other, like, general function icons, like the multitasking one and stuff like that. The application icons in the center, especially for me being on the ultra-wide, honestly aren't bad.
Honestly, if you're going to go centered with the dock, just continue ripping off Apple, please, Microsoft, and make the dock not be full width, just centered to the size, like the OS X dock, so that if you have it do like pop-up or something, it's not obscuring. Like, I'm looking at my screen right now, and probably like 40% of my screen is just covered by a gray bar that has nothing on it, because I got all my apps, and I have a ton of apps, to be fair, pinned to the left, because I use it like the Apple dock, where it's like, hey, these are the things I actually use, and then my little status bar crap over on the right. But like, if you're going to go centered, just shrink it. Make it only take up the space it needs.
I think that they did do a couple impressive things. For example, they managed to make a UI that's worse than GNOME.
I don't really have any issue with the UI. Some of it I like better, but going back to the taskbar, I will say there are a few definite regressions. Like, I can't remember exactly what they are, and I don't want to say because it could be stuff that I'm wrong about and I just haven't found the setting for.
I like the idea of context-specific options for your right-click. It's just that I am so ingrained in it is this distance that it does not help me in the slightest. And having it be a context-specific menu that drops down makes a little bit less sense than, say, the way it's done in video games, where usually you click and then you move the mouse in a certain direction and a compass in order to do an action.
Yeah.
That is actually another thing. The new right-click menu in Windows Explorer for 11. I don't hate that they made it like a smaller, more. It looks better and it has less stuff, because, as I'm sure a lot of you know, you start installing stuff that adds stuff to the right-click context menu in Windows Explorer, and within like a month of a new install of Windows, it's a cluttered mess and it's annoying. Most of that's 7-zip, but anyway. What I hate, though, is that I use zip files a lot.
Most of that.
That's fair. You can, but
it was a pain, though.
It is there. But yeah, I believe it. But so now you right click it, and it has the smaller one, and there's a show more options button, which literally just opens up the previous version of it. And you have to do that to get 7-zip. So if I'm going to extract to name a folder as a new folder as the option in 7-zip, which is really the only way to use it, that now I have to do more clicks to do that. It's a little annoying.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like they kind of attempted to streamline to the point that it dumbed down, which is really kind of a standard thing for some reason, even on Pro stuff. And I guess I could see that on Home, and I can see why they don't want to do that between the code bases. But it's on Pro versions, it's give us the right click. Don't remove things. If anything, put stuff back. I have actually
seen. So maybe 7-zip will get updated at some point. I think there's already another application you can install that's literally just a shell to put 7-zip in the main one. But I don't want to install a second application just to change where 7-zip shows up in the. So hopefully it'll update. But it is possible to add stuff to the new context menu, in which that almost isn't terrible, because then if you have stuff you rarely use, you put it in the secondary one and you keep a cleaner primary one. But it's a little funky.
Yeah, I know. I feel like the right-click menu is already essentially hidden enough that it's just if you have that much stuff on your right-click menu, probably...
It's like an Internet Explorer toolbar from...
Yeah. There was enough crap in my right-click menu that not Finder, good God, I'm really on a Mac trend. Explorer, and you'll see why I'm on a Mac trend. Explorer
I was hoping you were going to take advantage of that.
Was like straight up lagging when I attempted to open folders, and I got rid of just. It wasn't even like I had a lot of stuff. I think it was just some conflicting stuff, and it got snappy again, which is good because I was like, "Why is it lagging? I'm on like one of the fastest SSDs you can buy and a great processor," and it was just Windows being kind of no. But
hey, at least your OS isn't running its UI in JavaScript.
Oh God, which computer's doing that?
GNOME on Linux.
Oh,
God.
Good Lord. Yeah. So Windows 11, it's a thing. It's just Windows 10 with a skin. That's literally internally what it was supposed to be until they went, ooh, we can make people think that it's an upgrade on computers. Because Windows 10 H2211 or whatever the naming convention is, that's not a thing for people, but it's like, your new Lenovo laptop now with Windows 11 available at stupid box store near you. No, Lenovo didn't. Just the brand that came. I don't know why. Sounds better than HP, I guess, or Dell.
I think we know someone who might take offense to that stupid box store part.
Who cares?
Speaking of things that come in boxes.
Yeah.
Everything comes in boxes. My brain just went like dial tone.
I heard those gears like grinding so hard it actually showed up in my Audacity.
Well, the question is, does your box have rounded corners?
Sometimes, and it's also got a lot of features that were returned to the Pro Edition. We're talking about the new MacBook Pros, which, holy crap! And I'm not just talking the price, because also, oh God, holy crap! But also, the price is too much, but at the same time, okay, they got MagSafe back, yay. F-keys back, yay. Ports again. Still USB-C. I don't think there's any USB-A that I can remember, but you got headphone jack, like 3 USB-C, HDMI, and SD card. Nice. Apparently repairability. The batteries can actually be pulled out with tabs, as opposed to needing to replace like half the chassis. Whoop-de-doo, whatever. You know, just M1 chip. Wait, no.
No suicide screws.
Yes. Not just M1 chip, the M1 Pro and M1 Max chip. But these things are insane. Every other tech podcast on the planet has covered. I'm sure tribes that have been undiscovered yet, they're like, oh, have you heard about the M1 Pro and M1 Max? Like, everybody's talking about this stuff, but holy crap, they're insane. The laptops are too expensive. I was like, oh, I am buying one immediately. I watched the keynote and went to the thing. I'd need the Max chip to power 3 screens, because you got the M1 will do 1 screen external. The M1 Pro will do 2 screens external. The M1 Max will do 4 screens external. Makes logical sense. Each one is a doubling of the performance of the one before it in terms of GPU, CPU, etc., etc. So I'd have to go for the Max because I used 3 screens. And that plus, you want to upgrade to the 32. Is the Max 32 or 64 gigs max RAM? I can't remember.
I think it was 64 in the Max. I think it was 30. Yeah, because I think while we
16,
were kind of
32,
chatting about
64,
it,
right.
Yeah, while we were chatting about it while the stream was going on, I was like, ha! The Pro can only do 32, and I have 64 in my computer. Ha! For whatever reason. Even though I accidentally have 64 in mine, but anyway. And then the Max dropped.
Then you're just like, oh.
64.
And the Pro and Max have almost the same TDP in them. They're stupid efficient. Like, we already talked about when the M1 dropped last time, how stupid efficient it was. Surprising nobody, they're just as efficient. They're actually, I think, a little bit more efficient than you would expect from the doubling, but it's still relatively consistent. But performance comparison-wise, no contest. The new Intel CPUs are finally beating the Max's single core performance, but like not by a lot for so much more power.
Yeah, I was going to say they're still by comparison like
they sip.
Yeah, basically. And
the 32-core GPU that's, I think, on the Max, basically comparable to like a 3080, roughly. It's pretty close. Incredibly powerful. 64 gigs of RAM and a terabyte drive was $4,000. Do not have that money to drop on it. super expensive, but when you look at what the chip's putting out and what the GPU's putting out, like, you're really looking at a chip that has the same performance as a $600 CPU, the Intel one, or the AMD one, $550 to $600 or so, and $1,000 GPU. So just those two alone are $1,500 of the price in that laptop for, like, what, a third of the power draw? Something like that, right, guys?
It was absurd enough that I forget which, was it Linode or something, that said that they were going to attempt to acquire M1 chips separately so that they could do servers on M1.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. Apparently, Linux is natively running on the M1 Max with GPU acceleration now in some of them. Oh yeah, the screen's also micro LED, which, as I think I talked about how great my iPad is fantastic. The laptops have a notch. It's horrible. At least it's 1080p now, but it's designed so poorly. You'd think that with having phones that have notches, Apple would have figured that one out, but no, they did not. Apparently, it's
just their brand now, basically. It's one theory I've seen.
It looks bad and works worse. They have an adaptive impedance audio jack, which is pretty cool. Their styling is a little bit not retro, but like Mac retro. It's a little bit chunkier looking in a nice way, in like this is a pro device way. The reviews I've been seeing for them are people just like, holy crap. So that's cool, honestly. I plan on buying one at some point. I just, as I said, quit my job. Maybe when I get like another job, that'll be a thing. Plus, also, as I watched it, the date went from arrives next week to arrives in January, go away. And I was like,
with what money?
Yeah, exactly. But there's a computer I can buy.
Oof.
Oh no. Raspberry Pi 02.
Woo!
Using the SoC from a Raspberry Pi 3B on the same form factor as the Raspberry Pi, I think it's 0W. It has 512 megabytes of LPDDR2, just like the previous Pi 0. Has the same footprint. Does not have 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi.
That's honestly fine.
Yeah. I mean, the Pi 3 and 4 had it.
Yeah.
It really...
For the processing power they have, like, you don't... 2.4 is just better. It has longer range. You're not downloading super high speed on this thing anyway. Like, even if you had high speed, the processor is better now, so you can download faster, but that thing would just... I'm just thinking about, like, when you download Steam games and it just starts, like, choking on the data processing on a regular computer. 2.4 is fine.
I kind of just wanted it so that it wouldn't take down the network.
Fair enough.
Anyways, no improvement on bus bandwidth, so you can still put your USB and SATA on it, but you're not going anywhere anytime soon if you do. And for some reason, the developers decided that they were going to make the BGA in the form of the Raspberry Pi logo, because somebody decided to X-ray it immediately after getting it.
Yeah.
As alluded to earlier, if you can afford lunch, then you can probably afford this thing. It is retailing for $15 pre-scalp, or about 13.5 pounds?
Yeah.
Because it's made in England. So, yeah.
Yep. Fun little chip.
I hope they don't go the way of the Pi 4, where they had to have multiple revisions of it because they kept screwing up the SoC.
Wasn't there a thing with the Pi 4 where if you pressed your finger on the SoC, it would like crash or something because it thought it was taking a picture? There was some weird thing.
There was a thing where you could crash the Pi 2 by taking a picture because they didn't have adequate shielding on the chips because, well, it's a like $15 computer.
Okay, so apparently that was long enough ago that time has no meaning for me and isn't real. Moving along.
Some,
other things that aren't real. 14 millimeter or 14 nanometer plus.
Yeah. Intel 710 nanometer manufacturing process for Alder Lake. It's an actual competitor to anything, which is shocking for Intel.
I have heard, though, a point on this, that part of it supposedly maybe is like you're comparing AMD chips on DDR4 to this one on DDR5, which is giving it a bit of an advantage. Which is fair because
was just looking at a review comparing the 12900K or whatever it is, the latest of their like i9 series with the R9 series 5900 and 5950X, and it does see a performance boost in Windows 10 with DDR5, not so much in 11, confusingly, and at least for gaming, as soon as you hit 1440 and above, where you're now more GPU bound, the performance boost is like 3 to 5%, which is measurable, to be fair. The lowest I saw was 2.9%, but it's at least not the price. The price is comparable. You're looking at $549 for the 5900 versus I think it was $589 for the Intel Core 12900K MSRP. Let me Google that. Yeah, it's the 12900K. And then you can also get the KF, which does not have GPU in it. Yeah, you're looking at $589 to $599 arbitrarily for the K. So you're looking at like a $6 price increase for, on average, I'd say 5% more performance, but a bunch more power draw.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what AMD shoots back with, and I forget when the 5000s came out, so in a few months, presumably. Though yeah. I have to say, even as me, who is not generally an Apple person and having used a Mac for the last year almost for work, despises Macs, the M1s really kind of make x86 GPUs just kind of like, yawn, when are y'all bringing out some ARM chips for our, even just for, laptops, for Windows laptops or Linux laptops. But, I know there's some differences or something. It's not as easy as just ARM better, but in a lot of cases it seems to be. So I feel like that's probably still where even, build your own gaming desktop is going to go, and I'm curious to see
x86 is just old.
Yeah. It's encumbered by compatibility. It's the reason why we have all the same security problems coming up over and over when we iterate on the same things, just with more cores and faster.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, ARM might be a reason for Windows, 12 to maybe actually be a thing. Like, oh, look, we had to recode this basically from the ground up. You can't run it on ancient systems anyway. It might finally be an excuse. No,
basically
it's not going to be.
To get away from NT, which apparently they actually have something called Windows Core OS. There's not a lot known about it, but I've been reading up on it a few days ago, and it's basically an actually new core Windows thing, kind of what they started going to with 8 and 10, where it's Windows 10 is the same thing on everything, just different versions of it, but they're still really pretty different. Core OS, the idea is that it's actually a common core.
Huh.
And
common core math, it's going to fail.
Yeah, I was thinking of that as soon as I said it, but it supposedly does wipe. It's no longer NT based, and you no longer have legacy support. It's just actually.
I'll believe it when I see it, because Microsoft.
It's a matter of it exists supposedly, but will it ever actually make it into the mainstream?
Hence, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
Microsoft. I mean, I actually. Got a package from UPS today, and the driver, we were talking, and he was just like, do you know how to fix laptops? He's like, my Windows laptop. And I was like, that's all you needed to say. Yeah.
Install Linux.
Seriously. That's what I'm doing for girlfriend's laptop that I recovered all of her pictures on the hard drive that was, the file system went away on that laptop.
Oh, God. See, now, I will say, and I shouldn't tangent us like this, but I'm going to because I keep saying it, and I should throw this out there, is that I've never really daily drivered Linux, so I could be totally wrong, and maybe I'd install it, and it would just be problem after problem, and I'd hate it even more than Mac or Windows. But the times that I have used Linux in VM or as a secondary boot that I wound up giving up on before long just because I never used it or whatever... yes, it could have more setup involved, and that's also probably partly because I was using Arch-based Linux, so that's what you're signing up for with that. So that's not a criticism. But in my experience, generally, you might have more setup to do, and Linux is generally probably still best for people who are more technical. But once you have stuff set up, it usually stays very good. And I feel like that's not just my experience. I feel like that's stuff I've heard, too, and that's probably why Linux is like a big server thing, because you set it up, and then it doesn't fail until the hardware does.
For a user, though,
I would not recommend Linux either way to someone who's not. I mean, we'll see how like a topic we'll get to later will turn out running off Linux. But generally, I certainly wouldn't recommend someone who's like kind of on the border about building their own computer or convinced to do it. I certainly wouldn't tell them like, oh yeah, and you should use Linux instead of Windows. You'll be fine. They won't be fine.
Ubuntu, which is what I'm basically going to say, and there's other variations, but if you want to look at kind of the most user-friendly, most likely to look like an operating system that someone that's not a nerd can understand, I'm just going to go with Ubuntu. And I just annoyed so many people who have fantastically curated facial hair and snarky t-shirts. Sorry. I'm wearing a snarky t-shirt right now. I can't say much. Ubuntu is great for sticking on a older, slower computer for your parents or less technically savvy friend who doesn't do gaming and is just like, I just want to hit up Facebook and like YouTube and Tumblr or whatever, just...
Yeah, I think once someone else sets it up for you, especially for a basic use case like that, that's viable.
Yeah, no.
Advise someone building it themselves to set it up.
No, and that's what I'm saying. If you want to do it for gaming, which it is getting better, thank you, Valve, for majorly spearheading that one, which we'll get to later more. It is definitely getting better, but it's one of those things where it can do a lot, and once you get it there, it's stable. But because you have access to every single little itty-bitty component, especially when you use the magic sudo command, if you mess up, generally, it's two sides of the same coin. You can almost always fix it unless you delete, your file system, which you can also do because the computer's like, okay, you the boss. So you can generally fix it, but it's also really easy to just mess up a little bit. And Windows or Mac will be like, what you doing? We're not letting you. And Linux just goes, cool, send it. And then you go, oh God, why does nothing work? And Linux goes, because I did what you told me, bro.
You asked for it, bro.
So,
as somebody has lived the gaming experience on Linux, I can more or less agree with that sentiment. It is a thing, and it's great until you have to interact with the real world, which is full of DRM and other nonsense, which just doesn't work out in practice. The world is not ready for the Linux desktop as much as we're trying to force it, because as long as you can't do any of your spyware nonsense education crap on it, then education world doesn't give a shit. Financial world only gives a shit as far as that you can do it on server side, and, well, what else is there really left for computing other than
editing.
the horrible butcher that is, like, mobile, maybe?
There's, like, film and audio, which
You're kind of shackled to either Adobe and or Apple.
Yeah, and the Apple stuff
least,
is actually...
Not that it's super popular, but at least Video Resolve actually has a native Linux version.
Oh, does it now?
I don't know since when they've had it, but yeah, I was looking it up back when I was getting really annoyed with Windows like 5 days ago. I was like,
see, that's
how many
really
programs
good.
Are going to be a pain?
That's really, really good, because back when I had looked to switch, and this was years and years ago, I think I was still in high school, so I'm talking a long time ago, when I'm looking to switch, it was like, there wasn't the ability to do anything. Like, you had Blender, obviously. I feel like there's some contractual requirement that any open source software is also legally required to be, developed for Linux.
Really?
Hypothetically, if you had a strong enough command of Python, you could probably also do it in FFmpeg, but at the same time also, oh god, why?
Yeah, no. No, just no. You're banned.
Affinity is not on Linux though. Like Designer Affinity Photo.
Yeah, nobody has put a DaVinci. That's really good. Having DaVinci Resolve on there. That's what it is, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
In Blackmagic.
Yeah. So that's actually really good. That's a very powerful program.
I just want to point out for a second, Blackmagic is actually the name of the company that makes DaVinci Resolve.
Yes.
Just putting that out there if anyone didn't know.
Yes. Blackmagic makes some cool stuff. But the lack of actually good photo editing, no, GIMP is not actually good photo editing. I don't care if you're good at it, it's not good photo editing.
That. Agreed completely. Paint.net, I don't know if that's even on Linux. I would almost guess not, assuming
Linux's best option for photo editing is like cloud-based web browser things, which...
Oh, I think Krita is on Linux, and that one actually, it's more meant for drawing, but before I picked up the Affinity suite, Krita I used, and I'm pretty sure that's on Linux. I'd certainly hope so, because it's made by KDE.
System require all down. Yeah. Windows.
Krita I like quite a bit, actually. So there is at least something there that's kind of an option.
Yeah, okay, that does look fairly decent. Actually, I'm just scrolling on the page. I actually may have to check that out, though I have Affinity, so it doesn't really matter.
You'd like it a lot, because the splash screen is weeb crap. That's the one thing I hated about it.
I don't do weeb crap. I barely even watch anime anymore. I haven't watched anything in so long. Lately,
You're a recovering weeb.
Lately, I've watched Pirates of the Caribbean, and this winter I'll be getting into the whole Stargate series with the girlfriend, which will be fun, because I have that on the Plex account, which I think you guys have access to, so Stargate.
Hypothetically on the VPN.
No, you can
probably do stuff on the server again sometime.
Yeah.
Like, maybe certain projects that...
I should probably pick up a replacement hard drive so that the 6 months of failing disk 10 goes away. Or, Louis... just finish the drives.
Someday soon after the laser cutter, or ASDB, or the radio tracker.
Except the drive is actually failing. Anyway, yeah. There's still nothing really comparable to Photoshop. Drawing tools are good, but they're different from photo manipulation tools. I can photo manipulate, but there's levels of stuff which just good. Linux has
depends on how
editor.
Much of a power user you are. Like, I'm not exactly a power user for photo manipulation or like graphics editing, so Krita will usually be able to do most things I want to do.
There's basic edits, and then there's... And Linux does have Audacity, but Audacity works, and I've used it, and it's fine, but God, it's got nothing on Edition. I really haven't found much that has anything on Edition, honestly. Adobe's really... I should look into that more, but God, can we get an Affinity version of Edition?
Wouldn't that be nice?
Anyway, moving on from that. Yeah, we were talking about Intel. That's how this started.
Well, it's a good thing we don't have a whole other section that involves Linux quite a bit down the line. Oh. We'll get there in a bit.
That's 2.5 pages of notes for you. Anyway, I'm just going to finish this quick one. There's rumors of MSI Strix and Maximus motherboards for Elder Lake with Q release PCI button. Louis, what's a Q release button? I'm assuming you put this one.
Hot swapping PCI.
Oh!
The button, you push it and the PCI thing pops out. No more
it's
stupid
basically
tabs.
An extended lever for the PCI slots,
yes,
right?
actually, I remember this now.
I've already seen videos of motherboards that have that I think were on videos about Alder Lake chips.
Yes,
so
I remember
those
that now.
I don't think are rumors. I believe those exist. And
yes,
how did that take this long?
Yeah, especially it's like that actually reminds me. I also put liquid cooling as opposed to the Noctua NH-D15S in my computer. It's cooler and quieter. And now I can like reach in there because I had a tiny compact case with a giant cooler. But like with the cooler in place and the graphics card in, I couldn't get to the graphics card to release it or like the screws on the cooler. Replacing that with a water cooling setup was actually a necessity to do anything in the computer. But having a button to release
you
things...
no longer need a Dremel to perform any task inside of your computer's hardware.
I actually didn't use a Dremel. I used wire cutters.
Either, but... that might be even worse.
So I have a Meshify C and picked up a Arctic Raid 2 or something. I can't remember. The super fat radiator, 280mm rad, 38mm thick. My case is so small I couldn't pack fans on there too, so I had to cut the like back grating of the front of my Meshify case, so it's still got the actual metal mesh. It just doesn't have the zigzaggy inside thing. And I just kind of sandwiched fans in between the front mesh and the actual case, and just kind of pushed the mesh down over it. Yeah, it works great, honestly. The fans are visible. They're 150 millimeter Noctuas, so it's a little bit of an odd brown coloring in the front, but it kind of looks cool. I dig it. But God, that case is not designed for water cooling. But at least I can reach the lever for my 3080 now without the Q release button. Anyway, next topic.
We've all been looking for jobs, and I guess I'm probably not the only one that feels the frustration at recruiters just throwing everything in the trash, but apparently one software engineer doctored a perfect resume that just triggered all of their little tingly senses in the recruiter little mini brain or whatever. Their resume that they doctored up said that they were the head of the larceny AI team at Instagram, and they were leading a team of 6 to mine Ethereum on company servers.
They probably were, honestly.
They also used technologies such as Voldemort DB, which apparently is actually a thing, and Charizard at LinkedIn. Additionally, they spread herpes STD to 60% of the interns at Microsoft on the Edge team 10 years before Edge actually was a thing.
They were just on the cutting edge of that one.
According to the resulting Twitter thread knot that occurred, they received a 90% response rate from FANG, which is like Facebook, Amazon, Airbnb, I think Netflix, and Google.
Oh, yeah.
And they had received replies from stuff like Notion, Reddit, all sorts of, I think even Robinhood or whatever.
Yes. Basically, everybody was like, oh my God, this is fantastic. Oh, yeah, and the link to their portfolio site was just flat out a Rickroll. Nobody bothered to click it. Just all the bots were like, this person. Yes, bring this person to us. And the HR people were like, okie dokie, we'll call them.
I get the impression that it doesn't matter what you worked with. If you have that many big companies on your resume, then they don't care if you were like the top shit eater of this company. They want you.
The only thing that's important is that for the entry-level programming job, you need to have 10 years experience working in Apple Swift that came out in 2014.
Yes. Oh, God, in 2 years that's going to be possible. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'll steal this trick and apply to a bunch of places that I can't work anyway.
It's all about getting your foot in the door anyways, because there are people who are woefully incompetent everywhere, but apparently still manage to pass the screen somehow.
I think it's called nepotism.
Yeah, that's certainly part of it.
Yeah.
Alright, so there's been plenty of stuff going on in gaming, so I present you all the old news gaming roundup. Far Cry 6 came out. It looks meh. Pretty much everything you expect from a Ubisoft Far Cry game, with some minor new mechanics that don't really look very good, and not so great looking story with characters that seem pretty bad for the most part. Call of Duty Vanguard came out. It looks meh. Yeah. At least it's actually on the modern engine that Modern Warfare 2019 used again, Treyarch.
It is slightly updated, if I recall, but not like
the normal like year-to-year iteration that they do, yeah. Exactly.
This time, not polishing a turd, polishing a like old boot instead.
This time, a sloppy, fresh paint job on an already fairly new car.
Yeah.
The campaign looks super forgettable. I mean, not that Modern Warfare 2019 was amazing, but Modern Warfare 2019 at least had some missions that were genuinely really cool. This one looks pretty forgettable. Some of the missions just look really bad. Like they might look cool, but the actual gameplay for them is just like the plane one. Apparently the plane controls are terrible, so on and so forth. It has a zombies mode that was actually worked on by Treyarch. I haven't heard anything super great. Seems meh at best from reception to the content in it at launch, which is probably about similar to what Cold War had with its zombies, which actually was a decent mode at the time. So it wouldn't surprise me if as they add more content to it through seasons, it winds up being a decent zombies mode, and it's certainly a cool thought having zombies on the new engine. Multiplayer, unsurprisingly, looks to play pretty similarly to Modern Warfare 2019, but COD being COD, they just kind of add a bunch of new stuff in it, newer revived perks from older games, that some of which seem quite unbalanced. Operators are no longer separated by faction, which is a weird choice. That's in Cold War and Modern Warfare 2019. The operators, which is just the character skin you select, there were different ones for the two teams in each game. That's no longer the case. They're all the same. Kind of a silly choice, but probably not the worst thing for a game with small multiplayer matches. Little foreshadowing there. Weapon customization now has a full 10 slots for each gun and lots of options, which is a little strange considering this game is set in World War II. Okay, fine. There was, in real life, one experimental M1 Garand that took detachable magazines, but I don't think it would still ping when you emptied that. STG-44s literally couldn't work without a stock because they have a buffer system similar to an AR-15, /M4/M16. And, jabs aside, I can't really fault the COD game for throwing realism out the window. Really, at least they were committed to just going crazy with this one with the guns, but there's some things where it's there's just attention to detail that was missing that I genuinely suspect the Infinity War team behind Modern Warfare wouldn't have missed, like the ping or the stock or whatever. But basically, Vanguard looks to be the technical quality of Modern Warfare 2019 with the lazy kind of content of Cold War. Maybe a little better, but just not quite the attention to detail and just general, in most cases, polish. Not to say Modern Warfare 2019 was perfect, but not quite there. So, it's a solid meh.
Yeah.
Speaking of Call of Duty, Warzone's integration comes out soon. It has some interesting points. Comes out December 2nd. Will be a new Pacific-themed map called Caldera, which will replace Verdansk, whatever. Following send-off events that will be occurring during this month, I might actually have to play a little bit again for the first time in a while, just to send off the main original Warzone map. It'll have some Vanguard-specific modes that will help new players avoid being overwhelmed by all the players who played the last two games having all their stuff unlocked by just being Vanguard stuff. And Activision is hoping cheaters will bounce to a different game with the introduction of their Ricochet anti-cheat. Well, we'll get there in a second. But the server-side components of it are already said to be rolling out as part of Vanguard's main game release. The main component, however, which is a kernel-level client-side program, will launch in December. Yep. To both Vanguard and Warzone with the integration of new map. Definitely good news, and effective anti-cheat is long overdue for Call of Duty. Hopefully it works well. That said, there's some definite concern to it being a kernel-level /AK Ring Zero program. I would certainly keep an eye out for people who know more than any of us do to take a look through and just make sure it's not doing anything super sketchy. They've already promised it'll only run when the game is running, not like, I think it was Valorant, which had the kind of funnily named, considering the context, anti-cheat system called Vanguard. I think that one was criticized for always running, or at least you start the game and it doesn't stop when you close the game. Supposedly this won't do that. Hopefully it won't do anything else sketchy. Personally, I'm not going to buy Vanguard or have Warzone installed when this releases until someone else, again, smarter than me, confirms that. But here's hoping, and it's good that they're putting it in at least, and hopefully it works.
If it's good, I may be tempted to get it. On the other hand, I'm actually currently more tempted by Forza 5.
Yeah, I need to download that because I have Game Pass and it's on there.
Nice.
I've heard it's pretty good. So
I'd really honestly want a wheel probably if I was playing that.
I have a wheel, but it doesn't clamp to my desk well, and it makes me very sad. The way my desk is kind of curves.
I mean, honestly, no, I don't need a wheel. I could just use my Xbox One controller. I played Forza fine on that. But racing games are definitely one of the ones where I'm like, yes, a controller, totally fine. Because you have it's not just on-off, like WASD controls. You can actually steer.
It definitely. I've played racing games. I think like Horizon 3 and 4, and they played decently on keyboard and mouse, but controller definitely makes a lot of sense for something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm tempted, but we'll see. Apparently, it's good though. People have been liking it, and good lord, the player counts of that just on pre-release. There was
like
it
went nuts.
Yeah. But, that's a good game that's just about to come out as opposed to some other games that are...
Speaking of games that people played before release, but in this case weren't so happy with, Battlefield 2042 comes out soon. It looks... Jesus Christ, I hate EA.
Called it.
Pre-order early access starts this Friday, what is that, the 12th? Yeah, the 12th. So I don't know, that might be before or after this episode comes out.
That's probably going to be before. It's the 9th already? Yeah, that's going to be before. I'm not even going to be here tomorrow after working hours, because I'm going to town.
Yeah, nice. Full release is the week after. So as I foreshadowed earlier, Call of Duty Vanguard isn't the only game using an operating system this year. An operator system. Yeah, can you fault me for having operating systems in my mind? It's like half what the podcast has been so far.
Yeah, that's true.
Windows 2042.
They're about as good. Or in Battlefield parlance, a specialist system. Also like Vanguard, 2042 specialists are not differentiated by faction. They're all the same regardless of which team you're on in a match. So in this case, that's 128 clones of the same 10 characters, at least as when it launches, across both factions. Really? Beyond the aesthetic and identify friend or foe aspect of that, the specialist loadout systems are a drastic departure from the series trademark class systems, with weapons and the single choosable gadget slot that you have being identical for every specialist. There's no, like, this person can only use assault rifles and this one can snipe. No, anyone can use anything.
I do kind of like that, honestly.
I don't despise it. Like, I would prefer the conventional Battlefield class system for a Battlefield game, but, like, if this was it, I wouldn't really care that much.
I think, because Modern Warfare 2019 was like that too, right? Where it was just, you kind of build out whatever your class is.
Operators in Call of Duty are purely... Yeah.
I personally prefer systems like that. I think I'd kind of prefer more of like a points-based system where you could... So actually, a little bit like what Insurgency 2014 and Sandstorm... I haven't really played Sandstorm 2. But where it's like you have an amount of points, and you could just load up an SMG with no attachments and all of the magazines, or you could be a glass cannon and just have like a grenade launcher and a rocket launcher, no ammo, no spare like armor or anything. I meant to say no armor and no spare ammo, and just
and granted, this can change by game mode and or how you set up a custom server. Generally, Insurgency games do actually have like classes, so like a grenadier or a breacher, and their available equipment and weapons different.
Yeah, but I was more talking about like having the points system where I don't mind that, so somebody can't just like be like, oh, I'm just going to become a walking tank. But I really like the ability to just build out a class the way you want to play, which is one of the things that irks me about PlanetSide a little bit, with the really restrictive, like, this class can use shotguns, but this one can't. What?
You should have played PlanetSide 1.
I would have loved to. I'm pretty sure I was still on dial-up and running a Mac, so...
Oops. But, so... Like alluded to, unlike Call of Duty, the specialists in Battlefield do change certain equipment. It changes an active ability and a passive ability that each specialist has, and that's just they each have one of each, and that's just you choose which ability you want by choosing which specialist you want. And these are abilities like anti-aircraft missile hand grenades and a literal wall hack. Apparently, adding easy anti-cheat, which is at least some good news, wasn't enough for DICE, who decided that they also wanted to try deterring cheating by literally just including one in the game.
When I read that note, I definitely mentally inserted commas, so it was an anti-aircraft missile, hand grenades, and a little wall. I did not parse anti-aircraft missile hand grenades. What the hell?
Oh, I can link you the video. One of the specialists has like a grenade ability where it's there are 3 separate kinds of grenades. One's like anti-armor, an anti-personnel or something. But anyway, you literally throw it up in the air and you get it near a helicopter and it just yeets towards the helicopter after you've thrown it up.
So
it basically becomes
Marvel's Hawkeye, but with grenades.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, we'll see how powerful it is. Because in the video, it took down the helicopter, but maybe the helicopter was already damaged. But so it might not be a balance thing, but it'll definitely be an annoyance to pilots no matter what. And it's just stupid. Come on.
This is in regards to the wall hacks, but I don't know how well it'll integrate into an existing game that already has other systems also going on with it, but you can make a successful franchise based around functionally wall hacks. Just take a look at Blacklight, for example.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, if it's like a main part of the game, then sure, but like you said, integrating it into an existing franchise that's all about, compared to COD, which is what you would have Battlefield compared to the most, even though they are pretty different games, but as far as like a mainstream shooter, relatively realistic, or relatively less unrealistic would be a better way to put it. It's just, like, yes, it's slightly future-based because it's set in the year 2042, but that's just not a good...
Watching how our technology has progressed over the last 20-some-odd years that I've been, capable of paying attention, I'm going to go with 2042. Not actually going to be that appreciably different. There's going to be a lot of interesting different things, but not actually that different.
Probably not. Moving on, early leaks from players gaining access to the game since the preload period started a couple days ago as of Tuesday, November 9th. They've been able to get into the game and see the full selection of guns, and there are not a lot, which is another departure from previous battle games, and definitely a big bummer. There's literally 3 sidearms, only one of which is actually a conventional, like, semi-automatic handgun. The other's like a PDW and then a revolver. 4 assault rifles, and literally only 2 light machine guns.
Are there any snipers?
Yeah, there's, I think there are 2 snipers, 2 marksman rifles, or it may have even been 3 and 3, and there might be one other class, or that might be it.
No shotguns? Hopefully shotgun.
Oh, yeah, there are probably were shotguns in there, too.
Okay, so that makes it not as terrible as it sounds.
Yeah, it has the full roundup of them. That wasn't to say those are the only ones in it. It's just that within each class, like Battlefield 4 had probably...
Are they modifiable?
Yeah, it has an attachment system that...
Is it an attachment system like Modern Warfare with, like, changing out your barrels, your mags, your rails, like all that crazy stuff?
I don't think it's quite as in-depth, but there's a decent amount.
Because honestly, once you got modifications in, like, I mean, how many of Modern Warfare's guns? And Louis, you played,
You played Modern Warfare. Or no, you only played Warzone. That's
yeah, but Warzone still has the same feature
thing,
set,
yeah.
right? Like, and I can't remember because I didn't play a ton, but, like, a lot of the guns were basically stats clones of each other with, like, 1 or 2 things different, right?
I honestly had no clue.
Yeah.
All I saw was that there was, what was it called, the Kilo that you started with, and it was also, for some reason, the best weapon in the game.
I don't remember the Kilo being the best weapon in the game. Although, actually, no, right. Yeah, in Warzone it was for a while.
Yeah.
But I
like,
loved it. But that was one of the times where there was a gun that was definitely the meta, the overpowered one, but that was like one of the least bad ones.
I still remember when the FAL was meta and we were just running around just cha-chunk.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, the FAL was always good and hard. I mean, you didn't really play hardcore multiplayer.
No, but in regular one, I was just running around and just whomp.
It would probably still be good in that, too.
Yeah. But when you have enough modifiers, I feel like, honestly, 3 sidearms, 4 ARs, LMGs, a couple snipers, DMRs, like, you're looking at, like, what, like 15 guns there already? 4...
I think it's 22 is the count that I heard. Which
22 guns, 22,000 permutations with modifications stats-wise once you add shit on.
There's not that many customizations. Like in Modern Warfare, you could kind of convert one gun into another. Well, not like into another one that's in the game, but you could drastically change the configuration of one gun into multiple different roles. I don't think this has that level of it. And Modern Warfare also had a decent amount more guns than this does, I'm pretty sure.
I'm bullpupping your AR. What?
I wish Modern Warfare had options like that. I'm surprised Vanguard doesn't with how crazy they've gone with that. Maybe it does.
Every shot goes ping.
God. Well, I did actually, I don't know why this made me think of it, but apparently for the BAR and the MG42, you can convert them to, like, anti-material calibers. Like 50 BMG in a BAR and 13 point something in the MG42. I'm like, that's terrible. Imagine firing it. I assume it reduces the rate of fire in game of the MG42, but imagine if it doesn't, and then imagine actually firing something at the MG42's rate of fire with the equivalent of a 50 caliber 50 BMG bullet. That would hurt.
So, do you guys... Is XKCD still doing What If?
I don't know.
Probably. It's XKCD after all.
Do you guys remember the What If with can you fly with the Vulcan minigun?
If you're a squirrel, you can fly with an AK-47.
Well, I'm pretty sure a 50 BMG buzzsaw would, if not fly, at least get you strap that on the back of a sled and just go for it.
It would definitely facilitate a hasty retreat.
By which party?
Well, probably both. You because you're getting blown back by the recoil, and them because they have, I think, even later MG42s where they bumped down the rate of fire were still like 900 RPM. That's a lot of anti-material rounds going your way.
What the hell? Yeah, that'd certainly be a hazard zone.
Yeah. Hazard Zone is the second mode of 2042. It's compared to like Escape from Tarkov or Hunt Showdown. It looks pretty shallow, a little bit boring, but it doesn't look bad. The specialist system actually kind of makes sense for it. If you pick up the game, it'll probably be worth jumping into on occasion.
If you pick up the game.
There's not much good to say about it. There's not much bad to say about it. So that's probably about as good as you're going to get from the EA. That and putting anti-cheat in, but you kind of ruined that by also putting cheats in the game. So
yeah.
Portal, however, the third mode, is where the real potential seemed to lie, but as more information comes out about it, Christ, I hate EA.
We finally get a Portal 3 and it's shit.
Well, we'll get another 3 from Valve later, but they teased a full like visual logic editor. It looked kind of like MIT Scratch if you've ever used that, which for having something to make a mode in a game is pretty cool. Turns out that's locked to only the team deathmatch and free-for-all modes. And yes, with this logic editor, you can probably convert them to function like other modes, but I'm not sure how it would work with like placing objectives on the map, because I know there isn't much like map editing you can do with it, or really any. The standard configurations are fairly limited, basically to just like what you'd expect from a regular, like if you got server software for most games, installed it, and were configuring the options for how your server would run. The other big thing it does is it revives Battlefield 1942, Battlefield 3, and Battlefield Bad Company 2. It literally has content from them that they've remastered to the new engine. So basically, Portal lets players create their own games with either the 2042 content or content from these old games, and that's all pretty cool. That said, you're getting like 2 maps and not all the factions from each of the games that they're bringing in, so like you wouldn't buy Battlefield 2042 to play a remastered Battlefield 3 multiplayer. It's a small fraction of Battlefield 3 that just wouldn't really be worth it, or any of them really. Really, I don't think it makes sense unless you're also interested in the Battlefield 2042 content, which, if you don't like being wall hacked, then you probably won't. But we'll see what happens. They'll probably add more content, hopefully with season passes and stuff like that. The other big kind of hit against Portal is that there's no way to host a persistent game. Anyone can host a game for free, which is cool, but the game dies once everyone has left it, and the only way to restart it is for whoever originally hosted it, or someone else who has access to the same, like has been shared the same rule set to host it themselves. Is to manually go and restart the game and wait for it to populate again, and cycle repeats. Hopefully at some point they'll add a way to do persistent servers, but EA being EA, they're probably going to do the thing they've done for the last few Battlefields, where you have to pay them or an authorized party to rent a server from them, instead of just releasing the server software openly, like literally every other game with user-hostable servers.
That... just the way you phrased that? Like, being able to host your own server like literally every other game with user-hostable servers. Well, yes, that is how that works.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know what you were trying to say, and you did successfully say it, but you also failed successfully.
Fair enough.
Well, he's not wrong.
Well, at least that's better than EA, who frankly has dropped the ball on Battlefield 2042 so many times that Times Square has gone forward a few hundred years in time.
Yep. Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully it
some
gets
major
better.
changes will turn it around. That has happened, to be fair. That actually has happened with EA games before.
We got some false hope with Squadrons, okay?
And that gave us some false hope too, because that game is actually good. From launch. But
I still haven't gotten that, but that's because I honestly, at some point, I want a HOTAS setup, but I can't justify a HOTAS setup with my, well, especially my lack thereof of income now, but even my prior income, I was like, I have more important things to do than spend like $300 on a good setup for like a couple games that I don't really play. So
I don't know if they still are, but they're royally marked up for a while.
Oh yeah, I know. Everybody
Between COVID
was,
and Flight Simulator coming out,
and Squadrons.
Yeah, that too.
Squadrons is still best played with a stick and a mouse.
Yeah.
With a stick and well, I don't know about the mouse part. I know I tried playing it a little bit on keyboard and mouse controls before plugging in my X55 and the keyboard and mouse controls in that game. Like, yes, I realize in general keyboard and mouse for a flight game, not the best. Some games are still like doable with it. Like, they're not bad. Like, Arma actually flies pretty well on keyboard and mouse. Squadrons was absolutely terrible on keyboard and mouse. Terrible.
Yeah. But in terms of things that are hopefully not terrible, and I'm actually really looking forward to, I think most of the guys are actually looking forward to this one.
Yep.
The trailer dropped last November-ish, I think, and like the teaser, and everybody's like, ah! And people already probably know what we're talking about. Halo Infinite. Everything looks better. They polished the content a lot more. It looks funny, but not like cheesy funny. The campaign looks good. Somebody accidentally glitched into like a test zone during one of the flights and started messing around with the various vehicles. They recorded the Scorpion tank firing, and it did things to me.
It did. And it really was pretty great.
The comments on YouTube were hilarious from a bunch of people where it was, the tell me you've never heard a real explosion without telling me you've never heard a real explosion sort of thing. This doesn't sound blah, blah, blah. Me listening to it like, that sounds so good and realistic. Like, there was...
That face when Halo is more realistic than a, Modern Warfare shooter that's set in only 21 years from now.
On the other hand, why is the Scorpion main cannon so small? We use bigger guns on our tanks now.
It's a valid point.
And on the other hand, the Scorpion is a terrible design for a tank. It looks great, but it's a terrible design for a tank. We're not getting into that. But anyway, news the co-op campaign and Forge mode not being included at launch. Very disappointing. No co-op campaign? Ugh.
Yeah, apparently unless that's changed, but I couldn't find anything saying it has, that's not going to be there for a few months. Apparently, because the campaign's going more open worldy, they're just like someone literally asked a Microsoft dev or 343 or whoever's making it dev about it, and they're like, yeah, we just have no idea how we're going to do that. But supposedly they will figure it out at some point.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. I don't think I pre-ordered it on Steam. This is a game that I would feel comfortable pre-ordering, honestly. I can understand not having the co-op campaign included. It gives me more time to hold off. That's a little bit disappointing, but honestly, I'm not a huge multiplayer person. I like co-op campaigns more.
And mostly multiplayer part's free anyway.
Oh, true. But I'm not a huge PvP person. I was actually pretty decent at Modern Warfare 2019, weirdly, because I'm bad at first-person shooters, or at least was. I don't know. But I'm not a huge PvP person, so this just gives me time to hold off. And honestly, the co-op campaign coming out later is nice because that means that we're going to be on Infinite 1.1 or 1.2 before they drop it, because it looks good. I'm quite confident it's going to be good, but it's going to be buggy.
No one releases completed games in 2021.
So needing to wait until they've done a couple patches and for co-op to come out, that's totally fine by me, honestly.
Maybe by then I'll actually have played the campaigns of the other games.
Yeah. Apparently it's a UI outline instead of player armor color team differentiation. I actually kind of like that. It makes more sense anyway.
It seems to work well, and it actually seems to work well, whereas one of the complaints, at least from the beta, and maybe they've fixed it, but it's also Halo, so it makes more sense to have a system like this in Battlefield. But the way the UI differentiated teams on Battlefield was bad. In this case, it It makes more sense from a logical universe perspective, and
we have friend or foe tags already, and shitty heads-up displays are being tested out. You think 500 years in the future, the fact that we didn't have that before, we were just relying on color, give me a break.
I mean, isn't an explanation for why most guns in Halo don't have aim down sight that the armor handles aiming for you, so you don't have to
yes,
pull it up to your eye?
Yeah.
It's probably just an explanation cop-out for not having aim down sight when it wasn't common way back when Halo 1 came out, but it's reasonable at least. I can't fault it.
All the Marines have that eyepiece thing.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, honestly, the HUD not automatically... And now, if they want it to be fun, which I know this isn't what they're doing, make the HUD only highlight your team. Have it oh, look, you can see the friendly tags. Anything moving that's not highlighted... give her hell.
I mean, that's how hardcore Call of Duty works, is you will, and you don't even always see the friendly tags. It's only if you're kind of looking in the general direction of a friendly, it'll show them as a friendly tag. And I mean, it's a broad general direction, but
but
that's
still
basically how it works.
Reception trailers, news, technical tests generally been positive. Some streamers have bemoaned the game for not including a battle royale mode.
We all know they're really just upset that they don't have an escape route from Warzone yet to keep all their Battle Royale fan viewers, but have a new game to play.
I don't like Battle Royales. Honestly, I think I would be fine with Battle Royales. I don't like with the massive proliferation. Is that the word?
Yeah.
Okay, it. I said it correctly. It felt wrong in the mouth. The massive amount of Battle Royales that are ubiquitous in gaming at this point. They're in every game, basically. And Planetside 2 tried to follow along with that trend with Planetside Arena, right? Which failed miserably and it has attempted to be completely covered up. It's baked into Call of Duty at this point where you can't even get rid of it. It's I don't play it. I don't want it. Let me go. Let me make it go away. And it's just no, you have to keep it.
I meant to mention earlier, I am kind of hoping that they move the Warzone install to Vanguard and out of Modern Warfare when...
Dude, if Modern Warfare, especially, if the Ring Zero is good and they send it back to Modern Warfare, which they might, because there has still been some updates to it, I think.
Maybe, but I think a lot of the updates to Modern Warfare, though, have just been the guns they had already built as post-launch content,
I can still hope that maybe they toss that in there, because if the cheaters are mostly gone and it's a smaller install, it's coming on winter. I'll play Modern Warfare 2019 a whole bunch.
At least cheaters aren't as bad in Modern Warfare multiplayer, COD multiplayer than Warzone, where it's Warzone, you die and you're either out of the game or you're possibly out of the game if, it's...
Yeah. But much like Warzone, multiplayer for Halo Infinite is going free to play, which people have talked about. That poses some concern, but if Microsoft continues their trend of late away from anti-consumer behavior, at least in gaming, pretty sure they're anti-consumer in operating systems, hopefully we won't see anything too terrible make its way into Halo, which is currently slated for release on December 8th. We'll see if it actually releases then. If it doesn't release, if they do a pushback, I don't think it's going to be more than 2 weeks. Because I can guarantee they're trying to get it completely released before Christmas.
Yeah.
Hell or high water.
Yeah.
So I could see a bit of a release to a week before Christmas so that they have time to hopefully push a oh crap patch, which they're going to have to do anyway. But honestly...
We want one of the major games of 2021 to A, come out in 2021, and B, not winding up being... Well, Vanguard was mad best, but 2042 looks like it's just going to be bad, so... Actually having one of the big 2021 games come out being good would be nice. Although, Microsoft kind of already got that with Forza, but I don't know if that's I do know that's definitely not as big as Halo.
Yeah. But, 2 games will come out, but not 3.
Yep, the next topic on deck, Valve has counted to 3, as we alluded to earlier. Don't get your hopes up too much, though. It is with SteamOS 3, which is powering, and this you can get excited about, their upcoming Steam Deck handheld gaming computer. It's announced back in, I believe, July, powered by an AMD APU, and it promises, alongside its release, significant further enhancements to Proton functionality, because the Steam Deck will run on Linux. SteamOS 3 they're actually switching to being based on Arch, but it is still Linux. As part of their Proton initiative, they actually announced partnerships with BattlEye and Easy Anti-Cheat to add anti-cheat support in Proton, both of which have already released. EAC requires developers to enable a setting that supposedly is quite easy to do, both based on their documentation and I believe what some developers have already said who have done it. We'll see if major developers like EA with Battlefield that is using EAC actually bother to do it. Fingers crossed. Or not, I don't really care at this point. But BattlEye, again, also has already released it, and supposedly to get it enabled in your BattlEye game, you just need to contact BattlEye and be like, yo, enable Proton support, and they'll do it. The Steam Deck is slated to start shipping in December, though as of now, the availability has already bumped to after Q2 2022, according to their Steam website. Starts at $400 for 64 gigabytes of flash storage, though interestingly, flash storage that is still in the NVMe form factor. $530 for a 256 gigabyte solid state drive, or $650 for 512 gigabytes and a screen with a better coating and I think better material. All in all, I pretty much placed a pre-order right around when they opened up for one of these things.
Yeah, you did that within a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Which probably won't Steam Deck.
Yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah, like is it gonna be like mind-blowing, amazing? We'll see, but I'm curious to see if it does help Linux gaming more, so I can get rid of Windows.
Proton has already put Linux gaming leaps and bounds ahead of where it used to be.
Oh,
it added gaming to the Linux.
Yeah,
because there wasn't. You could, but you couldn't.
There wasn't much, especially not much without doing a lot of manual work that would really hurt your performance, as I understand it. So,
Wine was mostly just what you did because it wasn't working.
Yeah. And then it would be working, but at a lot less frames per second.
Yeah.
I think part of it, too, as I understand it, Proton is, like, generally uses Wine or something like that. Like, Proton's just Valve's branding for
It's like Wine Tricks, but less ass.
Yeah, it's their branding for automatically compiling the necessary, like, whatever you would call Wine, because it's not an emulator, and other configuration stuff to make Windows games work in Linux, just making it less painful to do and work a lot better. So, I mean, part of that obviously would rely on the things that it ultimately is using to make them work, also working better.
And as part of working better, and something I didn't see on these notes, which I don't think you mentioned, was the games on the Steam store have a compatibility marker.
That's right, they're adding that.
Which is like
exactly what it is.
Green check mark is like, hey, this is tested and works fantastic. Yellow check mark is like, hey, you might need to like plug in a keyboard or use a touch screen or something to like change some of the settings this works. Red X is like, hey, just don't. And a just like gray outline or something is like, we haven't tested this, we don't know, test it at your own risk. But because it's Steam games, it's like, you know, you already have your library of 387 games on the low end because you keep paying $12 to Humble Bundle every month. And
for Steam sales twice a year.
And so it's like, okay, you flip through your library, and it's not like it's going to cost you anything if you go, hey, this game has a gray circle. I'm just going to plug it in. Maybe it works. Cool. Maybe it doesn't. Well, okay, you play it on your laptop or desktop. Like, you already owned the game. It's not like you're like, oh. And unless you're somebody who's like, well, I'm going to buy it and try it. In which case, if it doesn't work, that's on you, buddy. But also that.
But also 2 hours, 2 weeks refund period.
Yeah.
Especially with something like that. Like, in general, they're already super loose about it, I guess, for lack of a better term. But when it comes to, like I'm sure they are completely ready and willing to deal with refunds based on, I want to see if this will work well on Linux, and then people finding out it doesn't and refunding it as part of their push for Linux adoption. Like that, I'm sure they've kind of foreseen that. One note, interestingly, about the red check mark specifically for Steam Deck compatibility, because it is specific to Steam Deck. If you're just looking for general ProtonDB.com or whatever, just look up ProtonDB. It's great. the red check mark isn't necessarily just that it's Linux issues, but also if it just doesn't run well on Steam Deck. Like any VR game, they've said, is just an automatic red check mark because ultimately a little tiny handheld that's like a bit bigger than a Nintendo Switch running an AMD APU isn't gonna push VR very well. So that's a red check mark for Steam Deck compatibility.
Now we'll just wait for the Steam Deck 3 when they've partnered with Apple and are using M3 chips at that point. And yeah, it'll run VR fine, but that's like 6 years down the line.
Yeah, well, by then we'll probably have good chips from AMD or maybe Intel that are super awesome ARM chips.
Honestly, if they're not already in development, with enough leaks that we know they're happening, I kind of doubt it.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't really see them partnering with Apple because they're not going to switch to Mac, and I don't think Apple's going to give them ARM chips.
Okay.
For Linux. I know Linux does already work on Apple Silicon, but
I do have to wonder, actually, and this is just spitballing, theoretical, but I do wonder if Valve is going to approach Apple, especially with the ARM style thing, and I wonder if they might work on trying to make Proton run on M1 stuff.
Interesting.
Because if it's already doing well, since Apple is based on BSD, Apple's on a similar foundational thing to Linux. Not the same, I know, but from the same... I had
wondered that, and I know it isn't currently compatible, and there hasn't been any stated plan to do Mac, but we'll see what happens.
But especially...
There's been a statement lately.
Yeah, and also with the, look, the new Apple chips have, holy sweet Jesus GPUs, actually, flat out competing with the top-end stuff that... Or not quite top, you know what I mean. That may be a good play, honestly.
I mean, ultimately, I think as exciting as the Steam Deck is already as a neat device, it's like it really is just a perfect example of something that begs for more ARM adoption in general PC.
Yeah, and honestly, no, you're not going to be running VR from your Steam Deck.
But if it was running something as powerful as I mean, that would probably just be an M1. I don't think they're going to stick an M1 Max in something that small.
We'll see.
But even an M1, I don't know. Or an M1. I think the M1's graphics isn't, spectacular. It's not, as good as the
I think
Pro Max.
You'd need it's half as good as the Pro and a quarter as the Max. It would have to be a gaming-focused
M1, basically.
But, honestly, depending on how things shake up with big corporations, we may not be using, what's the word I'm looking for? Connected VR headsets as much as some corps are hoping for. We might be going with a bit more of the standalone style, like the Oculus, which is kind of getting swept under the rug, but also put forefront as Facebook rebrands to Meta. Something good, though, Meta is doing is they've stated that they are removing the requirements for a Facebook login, a year after implementing said requirements on Oculus Quest headsets, which is really fantastic. It means you can't get banned from the headset for something weird on Facebook, which has happened. It also means that people who are not eligible for a Facebook account or have been banned in the past, because you're not legally, terms of service wise, you're only allowed to have one Facebook account ever, blah, 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 blah. Or if they don't like your name, looking at Louis, who we won't say his name, but Facebook doesn't like his name just because it's Facebook. Sorry,
I don't
Meta.
Get it. It's not even that, weird.
It's not. Honestly, it'd probably be fine now. It was just Meta being weird. When did you try that, Louis?
It was in the 2012-2013 era when they were just banning everybody who did not have an English or anglicized name.
Yeah.
A bunch of Native American people and Chinese or Japanese people were getting ban-hammered left and right.
Really, you dodged a bullet anyway.
Yeah, so really, he's missing nothing, but honestly, and I was talking to Coffee about this a couple days ago or a week ago. I don't know. Time has no meaning, I'll be honest. Oculus headsets are, in my opinion, and it pains me to say this, the best headsets on the market. They might not be specs-wise the best headsets, because obviously, like the Index, etc., and some of the crazy 5K Pimax things, which cost $4,000 or whatever, yes, specs-wise, best headsets.
That's a general consumer product.
Yes. In terms of, hey, look, you can get 128 gigabyte Quest 2 for $300, and you put it on your head, and it just works. You buy games through the thing. If you feel like playing Steam games, you can use the wireless Quest link, which they added because they were like, oh god, virtual desktop is like destroying us. So they've got plug-in Quest, wireless Quest. Virtual desktop is still a thing because it does stuff a little bit differently. So you can play it. I still wouldn't play Beat Saber off of your computer because that little bit extra wireless latency will just ruin you in basically expert songs and up, in my experience. But it's got great tracking. It doesn't require lighthouses or anything. Again, going into the inside out versus outside in, they're all inside out tracking. It's just active versus passive. But the Quests are entirely passive tracking, which is really cool. I can take my Quest, I could bring it to Coffee's house, I could bring it to Louie's house, I could walk downstairs to our great room where it's slightly larger. Completely untethered. Battery life, you just duct tape a counterweight to the back of an Anchor battery, which gives you like 10 hours of battery life versus like 3, and makes it more comfortable. On the Quest 1, the graphics is fine. Like, I can see the screen door effect, but when you're playing Beat Saber, you don't care. On the Quest 2, it's even better. They teased a Quest Pro, which has like face tracking, and apparently the controllers have cameras on them as opposed to LED. So the controllers are also like passive track, which means you're not even going to have issues with like the controller going behind you and your headset can't see it. Looks really fantastic. Probably is even higher fidelity. But honestly, the Quest 2 is already visually fine. It could be better, but it's $300. Like, you can't even buy a regular headset for $300, can you?
I don't think so, no. I think the Reverb, like,
the closest one, yeah.
So that's $500. Does that come with the active tracking towers?
No, that is... I don't think so, but it is wired, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So you've got $300 for an all-in-one, does everything. It doesn't do full body tracking. That's its main downside. Sorry, VR chat fans, you're gonna have to stick with the various pucks and stuff wired into like your computer. But $300 and everybody can do VR. And $300 is not expensive. I mean, it is, but it's not. Like, for what you're getting. Versus, you got to get like a $500 GPU at the bare minimum on top of the rest of the computer. So you're realistically you're spending
for $500 these days.
I'm talking MSRP. So realistically, you're dropping to get into VR prior to the Quest. You're dropping realistically a minimum of $1,000 on a computer, and then like $700 on a headset, right? Once you take into effect headset, controllers, towers, right?
That's about right. Yep.
So you're looking at, for the bare minimum, $1,700. Realistically, like $2,300 if you are going. And yes, a bunch of people who are into VR are already gamers, so they already have it. But if you're looking at starting from zero, I want to get into VR. On the one hand, you have $1,700 to like $2,300 for something that you can only use in that room, is tethered to you, does have better graphics, does have more games, has far superior communication tools. Not gonna lie, there are definite advantages. But you're looking at $1,700 to $2,300, or $300 at Walmart, Target, Amazon, Best Buy, Facebook Marketplace used. I saw somebody selling a Quest 2 for $175. It sold within seconds. I was like, damn. But it's at $300 versus $1,700 to $2,300. And for the average person, not a nerd like us, the Quest 2 is going to be phenomenal. It's going to blow their mind. The Quest 1, I put it on my girlfriend's head. We were playing Beat Saber for like 6 hours when she was over last weekend. Like, she was having...
The next day, you were like, why am I so sore?
Yeah, I know. And she sends me a picture that I'd taken of her crouching under a block, and I'm like, oh, right, I was moving. But like, she was like, this is amazing. Like, that's many years old tech. Quest 2 is even better. I haven't seen through a Quest 2, but I've heard about them. They're great. So, yeah. So all of this started basically... People are way more likely to get into $300 for a VR headset that just works. And that's also the key thing. It just works. There's no finagling with it. It's the Apple of VR headsets. except run by a far scummier company known as Meta as opposed to Apple. I would way rather have an Apple VR headset, let's be honest.
At least until it comes time to repair it, because, repairing Apple products...
Well, apparently they're getting better with MacBooks, but anyway. Facebook is attempting to make a metaverse, which is, think Second Life, but for VR and with probably less, let's not go there.
You think they're going to be Palm? They're actually going to be IOI.
What?
That whole Ready Player One thing? You can sell 80% of the player's field of view before they get seizures.
Right, okay. I thought that was a Second Life reference that I was not getting in the slightest.
I probably didn't want to know.
Yeah.
That Saban's not here.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Also, it looks like on older hardware, as they retire it, they're releasing root access because the Oculus stuff is all just Android, which is really cool. That's shockingly nice of Meta, actually. Like, really not their playbook. They kind of seem like they're switching playbooks quite a bit. Also, randomly today, the Meta Messenger, we'll go with that. The Messenger desktop app updated. It's no longer saying 281 days since update. Cannot connect to server. Weird. Anyway, they're actually doing things. The metaverse is, if you've read or watched Ready Player One, there's a metaverse. We don't have to get into it any further. Neil Stevenson, the writer of Cyberpunk,
Neuromancer.
Yes. He's an acclaimed cyberpunk writer who capitalized cyberpunk. That's what made me think. Anyway, he denounces any connection with Facebook's actions. He describes it as flattering but altogether unrelated. But yeah, it's the same concept of the metaverse. Opponents of the metaverse describe it as a worse internet, which, yeah, that's about right. From what I've seen, Meta wants to become not an ISP, because that's wrong, but an ISP... I feel like Meta wants to provide an API for VR to the internet as a whole, is what they're going for. Offering space, it seems like they kind of want to be almost like an ISP if it was combined with AWS that was running a what are the phone carriers called? MVNOs? MNVOs? What are those carriers?
It sounds vaguely familiar, but
Louis, do you know what I'm talking about? The like Ting, Mint, Republic
subletting thing, except I don't remember the acronym.
I think it's MVNO. Let me double check. Yes, MVNO. I don't know what MVNO stands for. Mobile Virtual Network Operator. All right, there we go. I pressed enter.
Yeah. Yep, that makes sense.
So, actually, that right there, that's what I think Meta is trying to do, basically. Almost like a mobile virtual reality operator, or not mobile, a virtual reality network operator, a VRNO, I guess, that basically uses the ISPs as they are, but provides a internet on top of the internet, but it's also a space for people to make their own games, environments, whatnot. So they seem to want to be the access layer for it, if that makes sense. Kind of.
So I need to actually watch that announcement video sometime.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Sense of it.
Zuckerberg did make a joke about, but hey, I'm supposed to be the robot, and randomly had a bottle of barbecue sauce, Sweet Baby Ray's, on the shelf.
At least he's a man of class.
Which apparently is actually a joke about something that had happened in the past that he got memed on. So honestly, it is kind of funny because Zuck does seem to be aware that he just fails to be a convincing person, and is at least just like, you know what, I'm just gonna meme on it because it's funny. I'll go out and say it. I honestly feel like I would probably enjoy having a beer with Zuck, because
see that I'm sure it would be very interesting. I
think he's just really, really awkward under pressure. Hi, he's a colossal nerd. Like, people give him crap. He wrote Facebook. Like, he was one of the people who did, like, not the only person that wrote it, but like, the dude's a colossal nerd. He's so far off. We would be awkward too on camera for that many people, or like in like the Senate hearings or whatever. Like, yeah, he's bad at it, but man, the dude's probably just like got Asperger's or something. Like, have you seen us interact with people?
What are those?
I don't know.
They're overrated.
Yeah, very overrated. I like the internet. I don't know. Meta seems interesting, but we'll see. Meta. Yeah, how long's Facebook been a thing?
God,
At least a
05,
decade.
07, something like that.
Facebook launch February 4th, 2004. So we're looking at 18 years of it being Facebook. Y'all are going to have to give me more than like a month before I stop calling it Facebook and switch to Meta. I'm trying.
I mean, to be fair, the social network part of it is still called Facebook. It's just now a subsidiary.
Yeah, but Facebook, it's not Facebook doing Meta. And from what Zuck said, they are pivoting like hard into full-blown VR, working on that. Honestly, as best I can tell, Instagram, Messenger, Facebook, and WhatsApp
that's the other one they own,
are basically going to be on like maintenance mode, life support. It kind of seems from what he was saying, where like occasionally a little feature might get pushed. But hey, this might be great. I might stop needing to explain to people how to reuse Facebook's interface because
they keep updating it.
Yeah. Speaking of things, continue.
Facebook's pulling a Python import user base.
Yeah. And speaking of things getting updated, well, there's a bunch more, I'm sure, that's happened in arts, media, etc. in the months. I've been busy and dead, so I've only got one thing, which is Glimish. Yeah, I know I wasn't going to talk about them until they did something even slightly interesting. Well, here's the slightly interesting. Is getting an RTMP ingest at some point in the near future. Dev I talked to on Twitter said he wasn't going to give an ETA because they honestly didn't want to provide an ETA and then miss it, which fair. Honestly.
More companies should do that. I have to say, kind of funny, I've recently been, like within the last week or so, I had just kind of randomly thought to myself, I wonder if that Glimish thing still exists. So I guess they still exist.
Yeah. Getting RTMP for Glimish, they actually seem like they're doing pretty well, successful for what they are. RTMP means that I can throw another stream sending out from Restream.io. So when I get back into streaming, which might even be Thursday for YouTube, that'll be a couple days ago for anyone listening to the podcast, to a couple whenever ago. It'd be nice to be able to stream on another platform that has more discoverability, but I'm not sacrificing my ability to stream to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch at the same time with Restream. So once they have RTMP, you'll see me there as well. Yay. I guess they're still successful. You know, maybe they'll take on Twitch someday. No, they won't.
Bezos says no.
Yeah. Bezos buys Glimish and deletes it.
Toss in a real quick throwback all the way up to Windows 10 just because I was looking for that thing Louis posted and saw something else. Quick thing about Windows 10, ironically 11, pardon me. Ironically, I mean, it is basically just Windows 10, but ironically, one of the bigger things that actually got upgraded with Windows 11 is Windows Subsystem for Linux. They've done improvements to that, and that's cool.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, that is nice.
I actually have played with it a little bit. I mean, some of it might just be stuff I hadn't seen in previous versions or that had already come out, but not as part of 11. But it seemed to work very nicely. So good work. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we've been at this for an hour and 52 minutes now. A little bit less because there's some talking beforehand of a couple minutes. But not surprising, it was a long cast as we haven't released one in ages.
Yes.
A long cast, a long time coming.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll be back at this with an every 2 week cycle.
We get Saban back too?
Maybe.
Happy birthday, Bit by Grue.
Yeah,
right.
This is our year anniversary cast-ish.
We missed half of it.
Yeah, we actually didn't miss that many months.
Not much, really.
I don't know why we have only have
basically.
Yeah, because we had July, August, September, October. Yeah, okay, we did miss about half of it. June through. Yeah, we missed about 5 months. Well, so much happened, but so little happened also.
Not much happened, not much of it good.
Yeah. But anyway, hopefully we'll be back at this with an every 2 week cycle. I'll be aiming to have these out on every other Saturday. We tend to record either Sunday nights, Monday or Tuesday, kind of floating around in there, and then it gives me a bit of time to edit. So news is a little bit old when it comes out, but I know what my limits are for how fast I can actually get these things edited, and yeah, it's a bit. So anyway, hopefully,
Bit by a Grue?
Go away.
Too many meta jokes in there.
Oh, God. All right, everybody. We're going to head off. This was Bit by a Grue. Thanks for listening.
Drop the ball on a beloved 19-year-old video game series today.